Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Trending in Hollywood. I, of course, am Scott Menzel, happily joined by Mr. Demetri Panos.
Hello.
And today we have a packed show. A lot of news, a lot of mergers today.
A lot of mergers and acquisitions, baby. Mergers and acquisitions. That's what I'm in. I merge, I acquire.
All right, so we're gonna just jump right into it. Try to get through as much stuff as we can today within the hour, and we'll start off with the story that broke right away on Monday. It started last week, but Monday it became the talk of Hollywood, and that, of course, is this: AT&T and Discovery in talks to merge media assets. This is kind of crazy because, as everyone knows, there was just a big campaign for HBO Max, and it's been a big thing for Warner Media, and now this is happening. And basically, to give people the kind of overview of what this means, someone created a nice little chart online. So, if this does happen, what does it mean? Okay, so we see all these networks here. They basically all fall under one roof. So before you would have like the DC and the HBO Max, and that was all combined. And also, what's the one you like? The Turner Classic Movies was under there.
Love me the Turner Classic Movies.
Yep. And now if they do Discovery, you get the Discovery, Food Network, HGTV, and all this fun stuff also added. There's been a lot of interesting conversation happening this week. A lot of it I've been reading has stemmed, this idea of this merger has stemmed from the fact that they want to really compete with Disney Plus. Apparently Disney Plus is a threat. So this is hopefully their way of dealing with it. A lot of weird numbers coming out about how much money they would have to pay out if this deal does go through. Demetri, what do you think about this whole thing?
Well, what we know, one thing that will remain constant is that the customer service of AT&T will still remain to suck, regardless. So, the one thing I didn't see in your little infographic there was DirecTV.
Yeah,
DirecTV wasn't on there. I don't know what the hell's happening with DirecTV. I know AT&T has been trying to spin that off for a long time. According to Deadline, this is a $43 billion merger of Warner and Discovery. The thing is I had no idea Discovery was so big. To begin with, right?
Me neither.
But can you bring that infographic up? Because it's far better than looking at this mug. But when you look at you've got there's diversity there. You've got Food Network, Discovery, Sci-Fi Channel, TNT, CNN, DC, HBO, Warner Brothers, OWN. Where's TCM? I don't see TCM on that little.
It's not on here either. It's very strange. And I don't know if this is a complete graphic, but I've seen this graphic being used over and over again on various coverage of this story, which is why I pulled it to use on the show. I don't know if it's not a complete graphic, but this is the one that seems to be floating around the net a lot.
Yeah, and again, I don't necessarily know where this leaves DirecTV. So it's an amazing merger in the fact that it encompasses so many networks and, media entities. You know what I mean? Because HBO, Warner Brothers, those are like Cinemax. That's a network, but HBO, Warner Brothers, those are big entities. Those are studios. Warner Brothers just launched HBO Max. So, and when you say that they want to compete with Disney, I thought, isn't that what we all believed HBO Max wanted to do already? I don't know if the Food Network necessarily I don't know if that competes with Disney Plus, to be honest with you. So,
I mean, I think it's just because there's a lot of cooking, like Disney Plus is a hodgepodge, as we've talked a lot about on this show, is that there's a lot of content there that like no one knows about and no one talks about, because
sure.
we talk about the Star Wars show or the Marvel show, and
I
very
talk a
little
lot
other
more.
things get talked about. And the same kind of same thing can be said about HBO Max. We know about the Friends reunion, but do we know that there was a Selena Gomez cooking show that's been renewed for 3 seasons? Most people
No.
do. So,
No, I didn't. But I know about the Turner Classic Movies Hub
yeah,
on HBO Max, which is amazing, by the way. So I'll give that a free plug because I enjoy the HBO Max. I enjoy it for its ease of finding certain things. No offense to the Selena Gomez thing. I'm not looking for it. I'm
yeah,
usually just looking for the movies and things. I've actually been watching The Nevers on HBO Max as opposed to watching it on HBO when it airs, just because it's easy for me to get to. I like HBO Max, and I like how they've like separated their DC stuff. I like how they've created hubs.
yeah.
Like the hubs idea, whoever came up with that idea, I thought is a great thing. So this merger is kind of a big deal. And it's also going to be a big deal going forward regarding something that we love, movies, like the theatrical movies. And so that's going to be very interesting as well. We also read, because of this merger, that it's already impacted the Warner side of things with Dune. Dune, which was slated to go day and date HBO Max, they've reconfigured they've rethunked their planning on that, and they're now going to go. They're not going to adhere to the day and date release pattern established for the entire 2021. Instead, it's going to premiere in Venice, which is odd, in September, and then enter theaters for a time before finding its way to HBO Max. So we're already seeing an impact going on there, and I'm wondering what theatrical release window they're going to adhere to. Are they going to make up their own? What deal are they going to make with cinemas now that they're going to be so big? Are they going to stick to that? What's it been? 45 days?
It's been weird, right?
Yeah.
Universal had the 21-day window throughout the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Now it seems like they're going to stretch that window out more with like the movies that make a lot of money at the box office, like obviously Fast 9. It's such a weird moment in history for Hollywood right now. I mean, it's almost like the entire industry is blowing up. Like it's really like there's fires all over town and no one knows what to do. I mean, you have all the award ceremonies that are very traditional, all under attack. I've heard some insider stuff that some of the other shows are slowly starting to become under attack due to the amount of swag that they've been sending out to kind of like, entice people to view, because that was one of the big things that started the whole Golden Globes thing, right? Which makes it ironic that Netflix was one of the first people to kind of be like, screw you, Golden Globes, because like, hey, they were the ones who kind of started it. Very strange. But we have all these mixing and conflicting stories about mergers and streaming, and something that Demetri and I always talk about on this show is that where's the money? Where's the numbers? What is this? What does all this mean at the end of the day? Like, yes, we understand that content is king, but is content really king if people are not watching that said content? We had so much content during the pandemic, but how much of it was lost? How much of it no one talked about?
It's I got to tell you, Scott, too, and again, from knowing people who work in like content acquisitions, it was trying to stay ahead of the game during the pandemic because all productions stopped, right? So these people in acquisitions, whether it be for Netflix or another studio, they had to start going for things that were already produced.
Yeah.
And that in many cases would be getting a pass from many a studio. But because they were really like they had the upfront content, they didn't have the near future and far future content because everything stopped. So people were looking at everything to try to fill up their coffers, so to speak. It's very interesting when you were talking about, I've been through mergers and I've been through these acquisitions when I was on the studio side of things. Trimark being or merging with Lionsgate, and then Lionsgate Artisan, General Cinemas, and AMC. So, in the Deadline article, it's very interesting. It says the time between now and the completion of the Discovery Warner Media transaction promises to be a stretch with yet more uncertainty and executive comings and goings. Now, that's the other thing that nobody talks about are the soldiers. There's going to be a lot of job loss and a lot of restructuring from high end to low end, but it's usually a lot of the low end people because there's a lot of overlap, let's say. Yeah. So, but numerous people in the film world Deadline spoke with felt a newfound sense of optimism about life under David Zaslav, the longtime Discovery boss, who will run the combined entity, is perceived as more industry savvy and talent friendly. I'm not sure what this. I can't. This is no offense. You can call it my ignorance. No. I don't want to be. I don't want to come off as sounding insulting, but I've never seen this gentleman's name on a production credit or anything. Is this a familiar name to you?
Nope.
I mean,
have no idea who that person is.
And again, call it my ignorance. I don't want to come off like I'm insulting the gentleman, but the guy's he's being handed the keys to something pretty big.
Yeah.
So nearly century-old Warner Brothers, HBO, and Turner. That's the other thing too. Turner, they're getting. Like, this is really, really, I mean, this is huge. And we're getting, as it says here, quoting, waves of restructuring sought to impose order at the same time a clock was loudly ticking. So there's a ton of restructuring that's going to happen. And let's see, I'd be surprised. We've talked about Dune a lot too.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if something this big really doesn't become all said and done with everything signed, T's crossed, I's dotted 2022. Like, this is a big, big merger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like it's not even just like the other merger we're going to talk about, but this one's huge. So, I hope it's good for everybody involved, but I have to be selfish. I hope it's good for the movie fan.
I just think, Demetri, honestly, there's so much of this kind of conversation happening right now that it sort of goes back to something that we've said again. I apologize for always like saying this. That we've talked about prior, because I feel like that's just an ongoing theme of this show, is that so much of this stuff is just repetitive. But the truth,
but it's always trending. That's what makes it trending.
Yeah. I mean, nobody knows what's going on right now in the industry. And there was such this big emphasis on streaming that happened because there was no other way to see content and watch content. And obviously, streaming has been growing and growing rapidly over the last 5 or 6 years. We know that. I mean, I didn't need a pandemic to tell me that, but
Right.
apparently most studios did. They now all of a sudden everyone's kind of playing catch up. Like, oh my god, what are we doing? We have to be. And I think this is ultimately Warner Brothers' biggest problem in general, is that instead of realizing that they're always going to be number two, and I mean, I understand that that's an ego thing in this in business. They need to sort of like come to terms with that. Like, it's almost like Coke and Pepsi. I hate using this stupid analogy, but it's like Coke is going to be the number one brand, and Pepsi is always going to be number two. And the thing is that it's how long they've been around, it's how established they've been, how established they are, the taste and all that good stuff. It's kind of the same with Disney. Disney just has the money. They have the outside elements that go along with it, whether it's the merchandising, the theme parks, the cruise lines, whatever it is. They just have so much more that attracts a larger audience. And to me, Warner Brothers should just embrace the fact that they're so much better than all the other studios because they do such a better job at being diverse and being more inclusive. And that's something like which they should be playing up right now, but they seem like they just want to keep trying to be Disney. And it's like, stop doing that.
But Scott, every studio, you had said it earlier, it's bragging rights.
Yeah.
It really is all about bragging rights at the end of the year where the articles come out that say, oh, the top 5 studios of the year, and they break it down. The other thing that I've always learned from my meager years working in the industry is that it's all cyclical. It really is. I mean, Disney has the theatrical content. If we're talking just movies, because the studios love that kind of fame and fortune. Yeah. It's hard to hang a hat really when you think about it on streaming, because those numbers, the only one who thumps the chest is the studio that's streaming. Like, they'll come out and say, we had the most streamed show this week during the pandemic, but no numbers are released.
Right. So
anybody who has, right. But with movies, theatrical movies, even the casual observer can find out that information because those numbers are released every week. And then they're put together, and then you can see who had the biggest box office of the year. So yes, to your point too, Disney is like up here and everybody else is kind of below, but it doesn't mean that Disney can't like falter one year or whatever. Again, the way I look at the studio system and with box office, much like streaming, it really is all about your content.
Yeah.
So when you have movies that work, you can have a great year. When I was at Universal, like, we were number one. I mean, when you have movies like Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, with everything else coming out, like, of course, people went to the movies. But then the following year, Warner Brothers could have a slate of movies that click with an audience, and they go to their movies. So they're number one.
But that's not the way it is anymore. Because now everything is like, because the way that the industry has shifted, that we focus so heavily on content that's not daring, that it's franchise. And this is sort of, and I'm going to comment on Eric Walters' comment. I don't think Warner Brothers is trying to be Disney either. I think they're just trying to catch up to them. I actually applaud Warner Brothers because, to me, again, they make movies that Disney is afraid to touch. I mean, we didn't talk about this yet, but I'm just going to throw this into this conversation since we're on it. Disney had the rights because it was a Fox musical, and forgive me, I don't know the title of it. I should, because I'm a musical guy. But there is a gay musical that's coming out that was actually just sold over to Amazon. It was announced yesterday. I don't know the name.
Oh, yeah.
and that was supposed to come out as part of the Fox thing, and that got dumped to Amazon. When I saw that, I was like, how come no one's talking about this? Like, why is no one talking about this big musical that apparently has a really large following, and yet here we are, Amazon's getting it.
Mm-hmm.
And Warner Brothers, like they were also saying in the chat, In the Heights, what's Disney's answer to In the Heights? West Side Story, a remake that we already know has been remade, it's been done. I agree. I think Warner Brothers takes chances. It's how you end up with a movie, like whether or not you like it, like a Motherless Brooklyn or a Blinded by the Light. Like they buy
things,
movies
right?
Like that. Disney doesn't go to festivals and buy these movies.
No.
Anymore. They used to. They don't do it now.
No.
But yeah, I mean, that's what I agree. I think Warner Brothers should be proud of what they achieve and what they do, because they do produce a wide range of content. I mean, Demetri said that he loved the Angelina Jolie movie, which I still have not got the chance to see.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot. I've actually liked a lot of the Warner Brothers, what they've had, including Those Who Wish Me Dead. I had a great time with Godzilla vs. Kong. I actually enjoyed The Little Things, because a lot of these movies were just different from the stuff that I was getting. To your point about content, though, I still will say that I do believe Warner Brothers is trying to be Disney. Whether that's attainable or not, I don't know. But remember, you got to remember the years. Like, Warner Brothers was on top. You got to remember the years when Warner Brothers was releasing like The Conjuring and Gravity. Nobody had any idea those movies were going to be as big as they were. And they were huge for Warner Brothers. Right? They did really big business. Audiences really loved those movies too. There was a time when they were very synergistic. They had a great distribution, great marketing behind these movies. They're not what they were, say, 10, 15 years ago. It's very different now. But I do agree. One other thing that we haven't talked about, though, is that the business has shrunk. There's an act of contrition going on. So we don't have Fox to contend with anymore. A lot of studios have either merged with other studios. Disney just bought up a ton. Paramount has been in a tailspin for a long time. Same with Sony. So, Mason, Disney makes McDonald's content. It's formulaic, but they do. But Disney has come far away from the 80s and 90s when they had Hollywood Pictures and Touchstone.
Yeah.
They stay away from that. But that's the stuff that makes them money. And now with this Chapek guy, that's all he cares about is money and how we can synergize it with the parks. Warner Brothers still tries, though. And, they're still, I laugh because they're still trying to figure out their DC dilemma.
Yeah.
So, but we don't have 20th Century Fox, which is sad. Like I said, Paramount hasn't been in competition for a little while. Universal remains in competition. They have Fast 9, Jurassic Park. They'll have some other movies coming out. Sony Pictures. It'll be interesting to see. Lionsgate.
Yeah. But I just want to let everyone know this was the movie I was talking about. Everyone talking about Jamie.
Oh yeah.
And this was originally just to go down the rabbit hole. This, again, going back to, you just pointed out, Fox. This was originally a Fox title. And it's fascinating because I think it would have done fairly well, because Fox was also the person who brought us Love, Simon, which did really well, and they brought us The Greatest Showman, which did really well.
And they had no idea about either one, particularly Love, Simon. They had no idea that Love, Simon was going to hit. So again, I miss Fox's, to me, the going away of 20th Century Fox means that was a big that means that we're going to miss out on a lot of content, because Fox 2 they could release family films, they could release horror movies, comedies, Love, Simon, and plus they had Fox Searchlight. So to me, it's a big hole. And we knew that once Disney took them over, there were going to be a lot of movies that are just going to go away, that we're not going to be able to see. So I would hope that Warner Brothers or Universal would help pick up the slack. You would figure that content would have to go somewhere, including those scripts, because a lot of that's acquisitions and productions, but Fox is a huge entity to go away. So that's another thing that's happened with our industry is contrition. Same thing with exhibition as well. Bigger chains swallowing up smaller chains. So yeah, it's sad, but it's the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving over to our other wonderful story for today of merger talk. This is also going on. Amazon in talks to buy MGM for $9 billion. I think this is particularly interesting because last year there was that conversation that happened, right? There was almost a weird bidding war about the James Bond movie. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Netflix put in an offer and someone else put in an offer, and it wasn't high enough. They wanted X amount of money for it. So they decided to stick with it.
With MGM.
With MGM, yeah. And then lo and behold, now we have this happening. And I know you and I talked on the phone about this, and you said something very interesting.
I did? I did. Yeah. What did I say?
I'll let you talk about it, but you were saying how Amazon, if they were smart, they would use the Amazon Studios brand for streaming specifically, and then they would use the MGM title for theatrical.
Yeah, I think, yes, I think that would be best, because with MGM, you have a name brand. Amazon's still struggling with the theatrical releases. They've released some good movies. Let's be clear here, but I still think they're struggling to get that one hit. And that's all they need, is that one hit to come out to kind of put them on the map. I think with MGM, now there's a brand. There's a brand that people know about. And so you not only get nostalgia, you get everybody knows MGM. When you think Amazon, you really are thinking, you're thinking a couple of things: free shipping and Amazon Prime for streaming. You don't really think about some of the theatrical movies that have come out that have been pretty good. But I think if you put it under the MGM brand, it gives that theatrical push some more gravitas, and they still get to keep that MGM library is so rich, even outside of Bond. So yeah, I think that would be, at least if I were running things at Amazon, that's what I would do. I would say MGM is how we go out theatrically now, and it would be like MGM and Amazon company. So it's basically the same thing that when like Lionsgate bought Summit or something, it would say Summit, a Lionsgate company. They still kept the brand. So yeah.
I'm just going through the chat again. Thank you everyone for your comments so far today. It's always more fun to add stuff to the conversation. MGM properties relevant to younger audiences, besides Bond and
The Hobbit, Rocky, Creed, RoboCop, Pink Panther, Silence of the Lambs, Magnificent Seven. I mean, I'm just going through their whole thing. They have Handmaid's Tale, Get Shorty, The Voice, American Gladiators, Yeah, I mean, whether
but that's something, you name something there that people
what's
don't
that?
realize, and that
Yeah,
is Handmaid's Tale.
yeah,
MGM has a lot of television.
yeah, a
Nobody
ton.
realizes that because you just think of it as the lion roaring before a
Right,
movie, and you don't realize they have their hand in a lot of television work.
a ton. And again, they now have a wonderful streaming platform that whatever their licensee deals that they currently have to get their stuff out, now they have Amazon to do it all. And Amazon gains an amazing, immense library. So
Which they struggle with, mind you. I mean,
absolutely, they do.
out of every streaming platform, and I have pretty much all of them, I would arguably say that Amazon Prime would not get my money if it wasn't for the free shipping that Demetri
Same
said.
here.
Because I like Mrs. Menzel on there. I watched the first season of Jack Ryan. The first season was pretty good. Second season, not so much. And then there's like a few other shows that have popped up here and there. The movies, to me, been very like kind of like one and done type movies, right? Like I would rather have just rented them. Like, I mean, I'm not a Borat fan, so like to me, like that was garbage to me to watch that. I didn't even care.
That was a Fox movie, the
Yeah,
original one, right?
exactly. I mean, that's a Fox movie anyway. The Without Remorse was also bought by something.
Paramount, I think, had it.
Yeah, like that one. Just they don't have that content. I mean, they had a couple good awards movie like Manchester by the Sea, Wonderstruck, which I loved. But again, these are movies that, again, another common theme is that are not for mass audiences. They're for a very specific type of film fan. Not the average person's going to be like, "Oh, Wonderstruck's on there. Let me go watch that." Like, no, that's not happening. So, getting this library is important because Disney again has that library. HBO has that library. So this stuff is important.
Yeah, and I'm reading from this Deadline article. So for Amazon, media is a relatively small piece of its gargantuan empire, but represents a fast-growing business segment. So catch this, in 2020, the company, and I believe we talked about this earlier, like way earlier, like when we first started the show, the company spent $11 billion on TV shows, movies, and music for Prime services. So that was up 40% from the year before. Yeah. For the first 3 months of 2021, MGM Holdings reported revenue of $403.3 million. That's not close to $1 billion that was being spent. Now they say that's up 27%, but MGM too has kind of been outside of Bond. The Child's Play movie didn't exactly set the world ablaze to kick off a franchise again. And again, they, like everybody else, had to deal with a pandemic. But I think for Amazon, this deal makes the most sense because now they have a brand to go theatrically, and they can keep Amazon Prime for their streaming services and add to that library, to the Amazon library, a whole catalog of titles, which would be great for them.
So if you had to lay your cards on the table right now,
okay,
do you say this deal is going to happen?
I would say yes.
Me too. I actually don't have any doubt about it. Like I literally feel like it's like a no, to me it's a no-brainer. I feel like it's going to happen. Something
stupid would have to happen for it not to go through.
Yeah.
Like seriously. I think this is one of those things that kind of makes sense right now. You have two entities who have content. One entity is struggling to find its footing theatrically, but they have the content and the streaming capability. The other content is a revitalization of a fantastic, well-known brand name throughout movie-going history. Okay, that since they've come on back and rebranded, they too have been having a tough time finding the theatrical footing yet again. This, I think, puts them both in an amazing, great position. We could get, remember that content we were just talking about like 10 minutes ago?
Yeah.
We could get different content other than superhero movies. We could get that kind of content, that's the variety mix, theatrically again.
We'll see. Yeah,
We'll
only
see.
time will tell. But along those same lines, the big screen is back, baby. It's back.
It is. Yes.
And so for those who don't know, because I'm just going to be truthful, there's this, I don't know, messaging going on, this kind of push for the big screen to kind of happen again. And it's very interesting because this happened like a little whimper on a random day in the middle of the day. What was it? Was it Wednesday or Thursday, Demetri, this happened?
Wednesday.
Yeah. So in Century, so there's a movie theater in LA, very, very popular with the press screenings.
Right.
May it rest in peace, the ArcLight. Hashtag save the ArcLight. We have our AMC Century City, which is basically where a lot of events do happen. And
a lot of events, you got to be clear, this was a national association, and forgive me for interrupting, I'm sorry,
no
but
problem.
Just to because the National Association of Theater Owners, they hold a summit, like a fall summit and such, and a lot of those events are at Century City. So regardless of whether the ArcLight was still here or not, 9 out of 10, it probably would have gone to Century City regardless. So that's where they hold a lot of their stuff. But
yeah,
just,
but I mean, it was really strange because there was very little buildup to it. Is the point that I was trying to make, is that they, as you see, we have 3 very big heavy hitters here in this photo: Jason Blum, J.J. Abrams, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I feel like there was very little coverage of this event. And, again, happening on Century City. I know a few people who went. It was about 3 hours worth of trailers and kind of speeches and yada, yada, yada. I'm not really, I hate to be negative Nancy on this, but I'm not really sure the big screen is back yet. We will see. I think the big screen is back in China, as we saw with the Fast 9 numbers this so far, 50 million one day over there, and which is why we'll get 1,000 more of those movies. But I don't know if movies are actually back yet. I think next week is going to be the biggest test, and then we're going to start seeing tests throughout the weekend. So you can pretty much guarantee the show is going to become a box office kind of analysis little segment in there every week after that, because we're going to start looking at these numbers and comparing things to stuff in the past. But I mean, I'm not quite sure that Quiet Place and Cruella are going to hit the numbers that they're hoping that they're going to hit.
Well, first, going to this big screen is back.
Yeah.
We weren't invited.
No.
So that's the straight up thing. So
we were not invited. No.
We were not invited, which I think was a mistake. Being that, we've promoted this going back to the movies. We've had great conversation, I think, about going back, what it's like to go back to the box office, what it's like to go back to the movies. Everything that I've read about this, or I shouldn't say everything, a majority of what I read about this, it seems like it was a big messed up for them. A majority of what I've read said the studios really provided nothing other than what's already been online. And it was very humdrum. And it was very like 3 hours of, okay, I've seen this footage already. You're not showing me anything special. And it's the special stuff that gets people excited. And again, it's really interesting, Scott, your Comic-Con you're a Comic-Con pro. You went to Comic-Con a lot of times, right? I've gone to the CinemaCons, the show Weests, and the one thing that I can say is, and you can attest to this regarding Comic-Con and CinemaCon, usually after a studio presentation, whether it be Hall H or whether it be at the Coliseum, right? Minutes, not even minutes. Some of that footage is already out online.
Yes.
Right? They talk about Comic-Con exclusive footage for this movie. Boom. The trailer hits, whatever. Same thing happens after CinemaCon. They get news. It's buzzworthy. It's trending in Hollywood. That didn't happen from this show. We got nothing. There was nothing.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, literally, if you weren't looking for it, you would not have known that it happened. Again, this goes back to us being insiders in the industry and knowing what's going on and looking for this information to see what events are happening, what screenings are happening. Most people have no idea what this is.
No.
Or that it was happening. I mean, obviously, we didn't even get invited, and you found out about it through an article, not even an email. So, like, there was obviously a bad move on their part, because this is something that, if this was that big of a deal, this is not a situation where less is more, right? This is not a test screening where you sort of like want to get a feel for how the movie is. This should be like, hey, let me get a list of everyone who's kind of wanted to come to a screening in the last couple of weeks, or who has went to a screening in the last couple of weeks, and say, hey, guess what? We're doing this event that's basically about bringing everyone back to movie theaters. We would love to have you, since you came out so far and supported, and we know you're a big supporter of this. But they didn't do that. They took a few big names in the industry, they put them in the room, put them on a red carpet, let them do their thing. And at the end of the day, those are the only people talking about it.
And they had Schwarzenegger looking like a clown.
Oh my God, yeah.
Wearing a scepter, like he had
to announce a Netflix thing, which is even
right
like more
again,
confusing.
which makes zero sense.
I know,
zero sense. And then you make that action star look like a clown.
Yeah,
in his crown hat, and he had a sword or a scepter. And I'm like, really? That's really not how I like to see my action heroes. But again, in order for this to work, you have to get the message out, not just to your exhibitors. You need to get it out nationwide. You need to incentivize. That's why, hey, Scott, is it okay right now to bring up, speaking of our part, doing our part in trying to incentivize people to go back? Next week, we're going to have a special guest, our very first live guest in Trending in Hollywood, who has something to do with incentivizing people to go back. Is it okay can I let this cat out of the bag?
Take the wheel.
So what you may not know of, so Big Screen is Back is one entity. There's another entity out there that is having something called Cinema Week, which is taking place in June. And it's going to be a whole week in which most of the major chains are involved in the promotion of this. National Association of Theater Owners. I mean, it's gotten a lot of studios are behind this, and it's called Cinema Week, in which the exhibitors are going to be, with the help of the studios, finding ways, incentivizing people outside of just having a low ticket price Tuesday. They're going to help incentivize people. Let's go back to the theaters. They're going to use the movies that are out, try to promote the movies that are coming up. It's going to take place just prior to 4th of July weekend, and it's called Cinema Week. We are going to have on board the head marketing person for Cinema Week, Melissa Boudreau, will be on the show to talk about Cinema Week, its inception, and what it's all about, and what it means to you, the movie fans, and how exhibitors and how the industry is going to, what they're going to do. It's going to bring showmanship, I think, back to exhibition. and try to say, hey, the movie experience is back. We can do this safely. We can do it together. And we're going to, we want you to come back to the experience that you love. So next week, our very first, like, quote unquote, in virtual studio guest. I'm very excited about this. Very excited because it's something that we can get behind. And I think this is a great way. Look, it's one thing for the studios to do it, but I think the studios have so much that they have to pay attention to. Exhibition really needs to like step up. And this is a way that Cinema Week, which will take place across the country, if not worldwide, but at least definitely here. And it'll be great to talk to her to see what the plan is, how they attempt on doing this. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. To do.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think this show is fascinating because there's not a lot of shows like this. And I mean, we were trying when we were building this show out to do something that was not just a traditional movie news show. And I realized that it has a very specific audience and a specific marketplace because, we're not necessarily saying like, oh, there's a trailer for Snake Eyes. Like we might throw something in there about this here and there, and we might end like with a movie review or something like that. But we're sort of doing more of the deeper dives of like, oh, what's going on within the awards circuit, like in terms of the behind the scenes of the shows or what's going on with the behind the scenes of the box office or the studios. So I'm very excited about the opportunity to talk to someone who's a professional in the industry who will shine a light on what their outlook is for the future of the industry and how they foresee this summer going, because to me it has a big question mark right now.
Yep, I agree. And I love the fact that it's a marketing person.
Yeah.
Because we'll get to talk about pure marketing strategy. Like, and we can say, which nobody really has been forthcoming outright. What's the plan? What's the plan? So, we're going to have a plan. We're going to have this Cinema Week. So, I do think that, and you're right, and Scott, there's nobody like you. And I think that we stand out because we don't do rumors. We don't do Kardashian news. It really is about industry news that affects movie lovers and media lovers. You know me, I'm a cinema guy. I'm a cinema guy, and you talk streaming, but we're able to talk about a lot of things, including streaming, because it's important. And the way that it's being used as a platform today, especially during the pandemic, it's interesting. It's interesting to see where everything goes. And I love the fact that we can agree and disagree about things, but still have a conversation. That's the other thing that people have said. We have conversation. Neither one can be right or wrong, but we have conversation. You know what else? I've also found that the fans, the people who tune in live, that's very special. And other people who comment, they've been for the most part very respectful. They've had conversation that we want to encourage to have, because it's not whether you agree or disagree and how loud you can be. Because the loudest isn't necessarily the person who's the most right.
Yeah.
It's just how can you have the conversation? So that's why I do appreciate the live audience that we've procured, and I appreciate this show because I do think that we're different, but at the same time, this shouldn't be brain surgery. It's something that we all have a passion for, and it should be fun to talk about, but it also should be the stuff that you should focus about. Because a lot of people don't talk about this, outside of the trades.
Right.
Well, a lot of shows don't talk about this.
That's the big thing, right? I mean, the trades, Deadline specifically, I feel like spends a lot of time talking about the math and the numbers and, that kind of stuff. There's very few people on YouTube, and I appreciate all the nice comments on there. But I do want to say, I mean, it's kind of like Meet the Movie Press, but not really, because I Meet the Movie Press to me, and I love doing Meet the Movie Press, so I'm not poo-pooing on it, and we're gonna eventually have a show like that on this network where we're gonna just talk about news stories. But I think this is just more deep dives into actual stuff as to why things are happening the way that they're happening, which is not like, oh, hey, there's going to be another Fast and the Furious movie. Let's talk about the casting to that. This like, why is there going to be another Fast and the Furious movie? Right. And it's like, why did this movie flop? Why did that's sort of the deep dives that we like to get into on this. Like, why did the Golden Globes blow up?
Right. And, but it's also, it's news that affects the industry. And more importantly, it affects the movie lover.
Yes, it does.
Because for the avid movie fan, right, these things affect you because it affects on how you're going to consume the product, because that's what it's all about. It's a product. Are you going to go? And right now it's all about safety. So yeah. Eric was like, hey, can you watch Army of the Dead? Quick reaction to it. He must have missed last week's show. We talked about it a lot. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I saw it at a theater. Scott and I had two different opinions. I saw it at a theater. It was okay for a theatrical experience. I don't know how you saw it, Eric. You saw it via Netflix.
Yeah. I mean, I thought, listen, again, Zack Snyder, I said this last week, Zack Snyder makes a very specific type of movie. Whether it's a superhero movie, whether it's a medieval movie, whether it's a zombie movie. He loves his action. He has a very distinct look and special effects type style and the way he uses his cameras. I dig it. I'm a Snyder fan. I'm just going to put it out there. I love when he steps outside his wheelhouse like he did that. What is the Rise of the Guardian? Not the Rise of the Guardians. There's one with
Guardians
the
of Gahul. It's the Rise of the Guardians of Gahul.
Yeah, that, I mean, like, that was a really different type of movie for him. And I appreciated that. But if you've seen Sucker Punch, and if you've seen Justice League, if you've seen Army of the Dead, if you saw Dawn of the Dead, you saw 300, very slow-mo type guy. He's a little overly long. I mean, the only thing that I will poo-poo on Zack Snyder is that I think he's a little bit self-indulgent at times with his stuff. Like, I don't know if things need to be as long as they are. I mean, there is something to be said when a movie is tight and edited together in such a way where it's effective in a shorter runtime. Again, this coming from the guy who loved the 4-hour version of Justice League and wouldn't change a thing about it.
Me too.
But I don't know about the zombie movie needing to be 2.5 hours. That's the only criticism I really have about it. Is that I just didn't think it needed to be that long.
Yeah, no, look, I liked it. I'm going to rewatch it again on Netflix. I just didn't think it was my first movie going. It was my first foray back to the big screen with a capital B and a capital S. I wished that I had chosen something else, because I think on the big screen, the last half hour was all Zack Snyder action, but there are other elements of it that didn't fill up the big screen the way I had hoped. Some of the special effects on the big screen didn't really come across that great, and there were a lot of close-ups with unfocused backgrounds, which on a big screen was really noticeable, and it got kind of annoying. And I think on my TV it'll look better. But I did enjoy it. You brought up Sucker Punch, which for me, that's a guilty pleasure. Yesterday, I did find an article where he said something to the effect that he had a director's cut of Sucker Punch, So you saw that article too, right? But
Yes.
I went to my Blu-ray shelf and I pulled out Sucker Punch, and there's already an extended version of Sucker Punch
There's an
available on Blu-ray.
extended version, okay?
So there's a
version
4-hour version
upon a
of
version.
Sucker Punch. And again, to his credit, though, I also enjoy Watchmen. I was one of the people that championed Watchmen, and I will champion even more his director's cut of Watchmen, which is longer. It's really, I'm a fan of Watchmen. I think I'm a fan of Zack Snyder. Like I haven't poo-pooed on any of his movies, and I didn't think that I didn't know how this 4-hour Justice League was going to turn out, but it turned out really good. Has anybody by chance watched Justice is Gray, the sort of black and white version of Justice League that's also on HBO Max, and it's the 4-hour version? Has anybody watched that?
I don't know. I haven't watched it yet. There's still rumors that that's going to be the version that's going to be released in IMAX sometime this year.
The Justice is Gray version.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it is. When I last looked, and I started watching it, it looked good. I'm just curious if anybody may have watched that version. It looked good. It looked fine. It was just kind of in black and white. It was in that Zack Snyder gray. So there are a few directors that have like a color palette I call it the James Cameron blue, because that blue is in like all of his movies. And for Zack Snyder, it's like the Zack Snyder gray. Which also is in a lot of his movies. But anyways,
Eric, thank you again for your comments today. I mean, I agree with you. I don't know, like 3-hour movies. I agree. If they're really good and they warrant that, I'm okay with it being 3 hours.
Mm-hmm. There's
just a lot of movies, and we're going to use this as a way to segue over to another movie where we're going to give a quick reaction to. We can't give our full review. There's some movies like this one that
black and white picture, by the way,
agree with me that is very good, but I think if you chopped about 15 minutes off of that, you would take like an 8 out of 10 movie and you would go up to like a 9.5, because there's just a little bit of fat around the edges that need to just kind of go. And I understand, like, there's a big push right now, and Netflix is been very big at spearheading this. Part of my problem with a lot of their movies is that you're getting the director's cut. The first cut is the director's cut. So you get that Mank, you're getting that long version of Mank. You're getting Roma, you get the long version of Roma. And I think it works to varying degrees, and it's based on who's watching it. Again, I think us and the people who watch this show and everyone who supports our show and is really big on the industry probably doesn't mind watching those. But I think you have to think about the outside viewer, the people who are the casual movie fans, the person who's scrolling through Netflix on a Friday night. They get to Mank, they put on Mank, and they say, okay, all right, this is kind of interesting, unique. And then they look and they go, how much time's left? Oh my God, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yep.
I'm done. I mean,
it's because it's streaming. Okay, so director's cuts, let's be clear about this.
Yeah.
Director's cuts came about in the video years, specifically like the Laserdisc years, where they would come out with additional footage. But yet there were directors like James Cameron who made director cut really famous because he had a cut of the movie. The studio said, okay, we need to trim it down. It's got to be at least this, within 2 hours, give or take. So he cut them down. But then he would come back with like, look, I can name 3 right off the bat. Terminator 2, The Abyss, and Aliens. I'll even throw in Avatar. He films it. He gets the story that he wants. He cuts it for the studio the way that they, to adhere to this. And then he gets to come back, and I'm releasing my director's cut This is what I feel. We had to trim some things, but I feel this is the better version. And when you watch Terminator 2, when you watch The Abyss, when you watch Aliens, his cut, and even if they are better movies, the stuff that's put in there isn't like fluff, but there aren't a lot of movies that warrant like additional footage. I get it if you're doing it for a horror movie that you want to add more gore. Yeah, there are certain fans, but you'll do that on the Blu-ray. You know, you don't necessarily have to come back theatrically. So director's cuts have been a thing. And then, of course, infamously or famously, Ridley Scott and his 5 versions of Blade Runner, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, director's cuts have been out for a while. There are various versions. There are some versions. Even Halloween has not so much a director's cut, but a cut where, at least in the Criterion Laserdisc version, you're able to add the television footage and put it into the regular film. It was one of the great aspects in technology that you're able to do on Laserdisc, is programming. So there are television versions. I've just been obsessed with the 1976 King Kong, which starred the late, great Charles Grodin, who just passed, R.I.P. And there was a television version of that, which they put it into 2 parts. So it had like it was like 3 hours plus long. So, yeah, I mean, to me, director's cuts can be good. I think Zack Snyder's director's cuts are better than the feature length.
Oh,
movie.
without
Don't you think?
Without
Don't
question.
you think?
No,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a single one that isn't.
Right. But we could talk about Cruella a little bit.
Yeah.
It's the second movie this year for me where I underestimated it. I didn't think it was going to be good. And it came out. I was very pleasantly surprised. I think it's a very good movie. It could be shorter. I don't need a director's cut of Cruella. In fact, shorter. If you made that movie like 2 hours, an hour 50 to 2 hours, to your point, Scott, I do believe I would have, wow, this movie's like amazing. It's very good. I think it's really worth watching. Performances all around. It looks fantastic. Production design is great. The costume is great. A lot of people you'll hear talk about the soundtrack. I felt it was kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes it distracted. Ultimately, it's really good. The score is really good. And the performances are really good.
So, I mean, like, you can't turn down a Nicholas Bertel score. So,
yeah, and it's what Disney, made famous with Maleficent. It's like we reimagine evil and we make it hip and cool and like, oh, she's not really bad. She's just drawn that way. Well, kind of thing.
I mean, it's interesting because I think this movie, outside of Maleficent, like one of my big issues, and a lot of people had this issue with Maleficent, that I felt Cruella did, we're not going to spoil anything. We're not going to go into too much detail because we can't really do a full review. But to me, it doesn't pull out at the end. Like it sort of sticks its landing. I don't feel you get a reasoning as to why she becomes the way that she does.
Yes.
But you don't, it's not, it's weird because it's kind of like a movie about females, but it's not really an empowering female movie because kind of all the characters are kind of jerks.
Yeah. With the exception of 2 people.
With the exception of people. Right.
Yeah.
So I kind of applaud that, right? So instead of being this redeeming type thing, we kind of just walk away with someone who is flawed and not, at the end of the day, very nice and not very likable.
But they give, much like Maleficent, Maleficent gave reason as to why Maleficent became Maleficent.
Yes.
You understand more. You understand why, she became the villain that we know and love, but it kind of also changes.
It changes the narrative.
It changes the narrative.
Change the narrative.
It sort of kind of does. I have a question that I'm going to ask you off air. We could talk about it next week, but I think it's really relevant, and it's relevant to 101 Dalmatians big time, like really big time.
Okay.
But they kind of clip her claws. They kind of give reason for her Cruella. So, but I really do think that the two Emmas are great, but our friend of HCA, Paul Walter Hauser, is really fun to watch too. And his co-partner, whose name I forget, I'm sorry, he's great too. The two henchmen, Horace and the other guy. They're a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah,
and the fashion.
I think that the casting for the most part is pretty spot on. I think there's a few characters that don't need to be there at all. I think you could have cut them out of the movie and you would not have had anything less of a movie by not having them in there. But I think this is one of the first movies that I've seen so far this year. And it's way too early to start talking about awards. So I know that there's a whole marketplace for this and we should be part of that marketplace, but I'm just going to tell you right now, I think it's way too early for anyone to be making predictions for anything. But this is the first movie that I can see that actually, if someone entertained the idea of saying like, I could potentially see this being nominated for production design or hair and makeup and costumes, I would say that I agree.
Yes.
Will it? I don't know. It's way too far in advance to even start having that conversation. But, I can see it, the potential of happening. So
agreed.
All right. There is nothing in terms of big screen is back, baby, to watch this week. If you didn't see Spiral last week, I guess you can see that if you care to see Spiral.
They're saving it for Memorial Day weekend.
I mean, they're really. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, Mortal Kombat's been out for a long time. Godzilla vs. Kong has obviously been out for a long time. I'm sure
nobody has been out.
Great indie movies that we missed. I heard the Pink documentary that's coming out on Amazon today is very good, and it's by the director of The Greatest Showman. So I'll check that out this weekend.
I would highly recommend Those Who Wish Me Dead.
Oh,
the Angelina, I mean, but it's in theaters too with Angelina Jolie. I thought it was really good. I thought it was filmed. Yeah, I thought it was a really good movie, and it's the kind of movie that we don't get today. It's a suspense crime thriller. It's really good. I myself will be going back to Batu tomorrow. I'm going to Disneyland tomorrow for the first time. A little bit nervous, a little bit excited. But it'll be interesting. That'll be back to my big screen. I'm going back to Disneyland for the first time in over a year. So be able to talk about that. But we have John Bernthal was great. Yes, he was. I thought everybody was really good. Yep, Disneyland. Yep. Going for my birthday. I'm a little bit pissed that I had to pay, being that I was a Signature Plus pass holder for like 100 bazillion years. But I'm curious. Can't wait to go and see how much more they can milk me out of my hard-earned dollars that I don't have. So, anyways.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching this week's episode. We'll be back next Friday at the same time. Be sure to check out all the new, all the current HCA programming. We are going to actually have a new show launching on June 1st. Excited about that. There's going to be a teaser for that next week. So stay tuned to the channel. And
what's this? You can't throw that matzo ball on the table.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes,
damn it. I guess that's what you get for being co-founder of HCA. All right.
Have a good weekend, everybody.